My name is Lily Chen, and I'm 35 years old. 2 weeks ago, my father stood in the living room of the house I grew up in and told me I was no longer part of this family. His exact words were, "You own nothing here. Not this house, not this family, not a single piece of what we built. You made your choice. Now live with it." He turned away from me like I was a stranger. Like 35 years of being his daughter had evaporated because I'd made one decision he didn't approve of. My mother stood silently behind him, her face a mask of disappointment. My younger brother Jason smirked from the doorway, finally getting what he'd always wanted, me out of the picture. I didn't argue, didn't cry, didn't beg them to reconsider. I just walked out of that house, got in my car, and drove away. That night, I left an envelope on their front porch. Inside was a single document, the property deed to the house they were living in. The house my father claimed I owned nothing of. The deed that had been transferred to my name 5 years earlier, signed by him, notarized, legally binding. He called me at 11 p.m., his voice shaking. "Lily, what is this? Exactly what it looks like. You signed the house over to me 5 years ago when you were restructuring your assets for tax purposes. Remember? You said it was just a formality, that nothing would really change. Except legally, everything changed. That house. I own it. Every brick, every room, every memory you're trying to keep me out of. Mine." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "What have I done?" he whispered. "You disowned the daughter who owns your house. That's what you've done." Before I tell you how my father's decision to cut me out of the family backfired spectacularly, when he realized I legally owned everything he thought was his, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss stories like this. If you've ever been told you don't belong by the very people who should have protected you, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment with where you're watching from and the moment you realized your family underestimated you completely. Your stories give me strength. Now let me take you back to where this nightmare began. I'm the oldest of two children. My brother Jason is 3 years younger. Growing up, the dynamic was clear and painful. Jason was the golden child, the son who would carry on the family name and legacy. I was the daughter, loved, but ultimately secondary to the real heir. My parents, both Chinese immigrants who'd built a successful restaurant business from nothing, had traditional views about family structure. Sons mattered more. Sons inherited. Sons were invested in. Daughters were expected to marry well and reflect positively on the family, but they weren't the future. I spent my childhood trying to prove I was just as capable as any son. Got perfect grades, won academic competitions, got accepted to MIT for engineering. My parents were proud, but it was a different kind of pride than what Jason received for mediocre achievements. "Lily's so smart," they'd tell relatives. "She'll make some man very lucky someday. Not she'll be successful. Not she'll build something great. Just that I'd be an asset to someone else's future." I graduated MIT, got a job at a major tech firm, worked my way up to senior engineer. Made good money, bought my own condo, built a life I was proud of. But to my parents, my success was always a prelude to what really mattered: marriage and family. Jason, meanwhile, dropped out of college twice, bounced between jobs, moved back home at 25. But he was still the favorite. Still the one my parents invested their hopes in. Still the son who mattered. "He's finding his path," my mother would say. "He needs support while he figures things out." I needed support too, but I'd never gotten it. I'd had to figure everything out alone. 5 years ago, my father sat me down with a serious expression. "Lily, I need to talk to you about something important: financial planning." He explained that he and my mother were restructuring their assets for tax purposes. They'd consulted with an accountant who recommended transferring ownership of certain properties to their children to minimize estate taxes and protect assets. "I'm transferring the house to you," he said. "Just on paper. For legal and tax purposes. Nothing will actually change. Your mother and I will continue living here, it's still our home. But legally, the deed will be in your name. The accountant says it's the smart move." "Why me and not Jason? Jason's finances are complicated right now." "You're stable, responsible. We trust you with this. It's just a formality." I should have asked more questions. Should have understood what he was really doing. But I was touched that he trusted me with it. Something so significant. That he saw me as the responsible one, the stable one, the one who could be counted on. So I signed the papers. The house was transferred to my name. My father signed, my mother signed, everything was notarized and filed with the county. Legally, I became the owner of the 3-bedroom house in the suburbs where I'd grown up. Nothing changed day to day. My parents lived there, maintained it, made decisions about it. I lived in my condo across town, visited for holidays and family dinners, never thought much about that piece of paper that said I owned their home. Until 2 months ago when I made the decision that would shatter my family. I started dating Marcus Williams. He's a software architect I met through work, brilliant, kind, funny, everything I'd been looking for. We fell in love quickly, intensely. After 8 months of dating, he proposed. I said yes immediately. When I told my parents I was engaged, I expected them to be happy. Cautiously optimistic at minimum. Instead, they went silent. "What's wrong?" I asked. "I thought you'd be excited. You've been asking when I was going to settle down for years." "What's his family name?" my father asked carefully. "Williams. Marcus Williams." "Is he Chinese?" My stomach dropped. "No. He's black." "Why does that matter?" The temperature in the room plummeted. "Lily," my mother said quietly, "you know how we feel about this." "About what?" About me being happy. About preserving our culture. Our heritage. We came to this country with nothing, built a life, built a business. We did it so our children could honor where we came from. And I do honor it. But Marcus is who I love. Who I choose. My father stood up. "Then you're choosing to step outside this family. We cannot support this marriage. We will not attend a wedding that betrays everything we've worked for." "Betrays?" "I'm not betraying anything. I'm marrying someone I love." "You're marrying outside your race, outside your culture. You're diluting our bloodline, our legacy. This is unacceptable." I stared at him, at this man I'd spent 35 years trying to please. Trying to prove myself to. And I realized nothing I'd ever done would be enough because I'd been born the wrong gender, and now I'd fallen in love with the wrong person. "Then I guess I'm not part of this family anymore," I said, standing up to leave. "You're right," he replied coldly. "You're not." I left that day thinking maybe he'd cool down. That my mother would talk sense into him. That this was just initial shock and they'd come around. I was wrong. Over the next 2 months they refused to speak to me. My calls went unanswered. My texts were ignored. When I showed up at the house, my mother answered the door and told me quietly, "Your father doesn't want you here. Please leave." Jason, sensing an opportunity to finally be the only child, encouraged their hardline stance. "She's being selfish," I heard him tell my father during one of my unsuccessful visits. "She's chosen some guy over family. Let her live with that choice." Marcus was incredibly supportive. "We'll get through this. Maybe they'll come around after the wedding. After they see how happy we are. And if they don't, then we build our own family. We don't need their approval to be happy." He was right. But it still hurt. It hurt that my parents' love was so conditional, so fragile, that one choice could shatter it completely. 2 weeks ago I tried one more time. I drove to the house, walked in without knocking like I'd done my whole life, and found my parents in the living room. Jason was there too, lounging on the couch like he owned the place. "We need to talk," I said. My father looked up from his newspaper. "There's nothing to discuss. You made your choice. Dad, please. Can't we find some middle ground? Can't you just meet Marcus? Get to know him? See that he's a good man who loves me? He's not Chinese. That's all I need to know." That's racist. That's tradition. That's loyalty to our ancestors, our culture, our family. I can honor our culture and marry someone from a different one. They're not mutually exclusive. My father stood up, his face hardening. "Lily, you need to leave. You're not welcome here anymore. This is my childhood home. I have just as much right, you have no rights here." His voice rose. "You own nothing here. Not this house, not this family, not a single piece of what we built. You made your choice when you chose that man over us. Now live with it." He turned away from me like I was a stranger. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. Jason smirked. "If you're already thinking this story is about to take a major turn, you're absolutely right. Smash that like button right now, so I know you want more stories like this. And drop a comment telling me, have you ever been told you don't belong somewhere you actually owned? Because that's exactly what happened next." I stood there for a moment, letting his words sink in. You own nothing here. The absolute certainty in his voice. The conviction that he could erase me from family property with just words. Then I remembered the deed. The paperwork we'd signed 5 years ago. The legal document that said, regardless of what my father believed, I owned every inch of the house he was trying to kick me out of. I didn't say anything. Just walked out, got in my car, and drove home. That evening, I called my lawyer. Explained the situation. Asked her to pull the property records. Lily, according to the county records, you're listed as the legal owner of that property. The deed was transferred to you 5 years ago. Unless there's been another transfer since then that I'm not seeing, that house is yours. So legally you could do whatever you want with that property. You could sell it, rent it, evict current occupants. It's your house. I sat with that information for several hours. The nuclear option. The ultimate power play. The thing that would either shock my father into recognizing what he'd done, or permanently destroy what was left of our relationship. I thought about all the years of being second to Jason. All the times my achievements were downplayed while his mediocrity was celebrated. All the ways I'd tried to earn their approval, their recognition, their love. And I thought about my father's face when he said I own nothing. The absolute conviction that he could take everything from me. I made a decision. I drove back to their house late that night. The lights were off. I left an envelope on the front porch, weighted down so it wouldn't blow away. Inside was a copy of the property deed with a sticky note attached. You said I own nothing here. The call came at 11 p.m. My father's voice was shaking when I answered. Lily, what is this? Exactly what it looks like, Dad. The property deed. To the house you just kicked me out of. The house you signed over to me 5 years ago. This was supposed to be a formality. For taxes. You know that. I know, that's what you told me. But legally, it's not a formality. Legally I own that house. Every room, every wall, every inch of property. My name is on the deed. Your signature is on the transfer documents. Silence. You wouldn't. He started. Wouldn't what? Exercise my legal rights as the property owner? Why not? You just told me I own nothing. I'm simply correcting that misunderstanding. Lily, please. This is our home. We've lived here for 30 years. And you can continue living there. As long as you remember who actually owns it. As long as you stop pretending you can erase me from this family whenever my choices don't align with your preferences. You're blackmailing us? I'm reminding you of reality. You gave me this house to protect your assets. Congratulations, your assets are protected. In my name. Which means you don't get to kick me out of family gatherings in a house I legally own. More silence. Then, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. What have I done? You disowned your daughter for falling in love with someone you don't approve of. You told her she owns nothing. You discovered she owns everything. That's what you've done. He started to say something, stopped, tried again, finally. What do you want? I want you to meet Marcus. To give him a chance. To stop treating my love for him like a betrayal of our family. And if we do that, I won't do anything with the deed. The house stays yours to live in. But Dad, you need to understand something. I'm not asking for permission anymore. I'm not begging for approval. I'm telling you that I'm marrying Marcus whether you come to the wedding or not. But if you want to be part of my life going forward, you need to accept that. This is an ultimatum. No, this is a boundary. There's a difference. He hung up without another word. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay awake, wondering if I'd gone too far. If I'd permanently destroyed what was left of our relationship. If owning the house would mean losing the family. Marcus held me while I cycled through doubt and determination. You did what you had to do, he said. They can't keep treating you like you don't matter. But what if they never forgive me? Then you'll know where you really stand. And we'll build something better. The next morning, my mother called. Lily, we need to talk. All of us. Can you come to the house? Is Dad willing to have a real conversation? I think so. Last night shook him. He didn't sleep either. I drove over that afternoon, my stomach in knots. Found my parents in the living room, Jason notably absent. My father looked older than I'd ever seen him. Tired. Defeated. I owe you an apology, he said without preamble. Several apologies. I sat down, said nothing, waited. I've spent your entire life treating you as less important than your brother. Not because you were less capable, you've always been more capable than Jason in almost every way, but because I had old world ideas about sons and daughters. About who carries on the family name and legacy. Why? I asked simply, because that's how I was raised. My father valued his sons over his daughters. I inherited that mindset without questioning it. And I'm sorry. You deserve better. My mother spoke up. We both owe you that apology. We put unfair expectations on you while giving Jason a free pass. We measured your worth by standards that had nothing to do with who you actually are. Okay, before I tell you what happened next, I need to know, if you were in my position, would you have shown them the deed? Drop yes or no in the comments right now. And if you're still watching this whole story unfold, hit that like button to let me know you're here for the conclusion. And Marcus? I asked. What? About him? My father took a breath. I would like to meet him. If the invitation is still open. Why the change? Because I own your house? Because you're afraid I'll evict you? Because I realized last night that I was about to lose my daughter over pride and prejudice. The house made me understand the stakes. That you're not powerless. That you're not the little girl I can dictate to. You're an adult who's made her own way, built her own success, and deserves respect for her choices. Even choices you don't agree with, especially those. Because they're yours to make. I looked at my mother. Do you agree with this? She nodded. I do. I've been thinking a lot over the past 2 months. About what kind of parents we've been. About what matters, our traditions or your happiness. And I realized I'd rather have you in my life, married to someone you love, than maintain some abstract purity of culture while losing my daughter. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't everything I wanted to hear. But it was real. It was honest. It was a start. Okay, I said carefully. We can start there. Marcus and I are having dinner on Saturday. You're invited, both of you. We'll be there, my father said. As I stood to leave, he stopped me. Lily, about the house. I signed it over to you 5 years ago, and I can't take that back. Nor would I, even if I could. You've proven you're the responsible one, the stable one. The house is in good hands with you. I'm not going to take it from you, Dad. Or hold it over your head. That's not why I showed you the deed. I know. You showed it to me to prove I was wrong. That you do own something here. That I can't erase you just because I disagree with your choices. Exactly. Point taken. Message received. That Saturday my parents came to dinner. Met Marcus. Were polite, cautious, but present. My father asked Marcus about his work, his family, his intentions. My mother asked about wedding plans, about where we'd live, about whether we'd been thinking about children. It wasn't warm. It wasn't the enthusiastic embrace I'd dreamed of. But it was acknowledgement. It was effort. It was them showing up. After they left, Marcus turned to me. That was awkward. Very. But it's something. It is. Think they'll come to the wedding? I don't know. But I think they might. Over the next few months, things slowly improved. My parents invited us for dinner. Came to our place for Sunday lunch. Made incremental steps toward accepting my choice. My father never quite apologized for the racism underlying his initial rejection. But he made efforts. Asked Marcus questions about his childhood, his culture, his perspective. Listened to the answers. Challenged his own assumptions. Slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. My mother was warmer. She and Marcus bonded over cooking. He taught her some soul food recipes. She taught him traditional Chinese dishes. They spent hours in my kitchen laughing and trading techniques. Jason, predictably, was less gracious. He'd lost his position as only child and wasn't happy about it. But without my parents backing his attitude, he had no power. He attended family dinners sulking in the corner while the rest of us built something new. 3 months after the deed incident, my parents confirmed they'd attend our wedding. My mother asked to help with planning. My father offered to contribute financially, though I declined. Marcus and I were paying for our own wedding. I'd like to contribute something, my father insisted, not as a way to control anything. Just as a gesture. Okay, I agreed. You can pay for the rehearsal dinner. That's all? That's plenty. The wedding was small, intimate, beautiful. My parents sat in the front row. My mother cried during the vows. My father shook Marcus's hand afterward and said, "Welcome to the family." It wasn't the wedding I'd imagined as a little girl. That version had my father walking me down the aisle, everyone crying tears of joy, unambiguous celebration. This was more complicated. Scarred by months of conflict, tentative reconciliation, relationships still being rebuilt. But it was real. And in some ways, more meaningful for having been fought for. A year after the wedding, my father called me to his house. The house I legally owned but they still lived in. "I want to discuss something," he said formally. "Okay, I've been thinking about the house. About the situation we're in. And I want to make it official." "Official how?" "I want to draw up a rental agreement. Fair market rate. You're the landlord, we're the tenants. Everything documented properly." I started to protest. "Dad, that's not necessary." "It is. Because right now we're in this weird limbo where you own the house but we live here and neither of us knows exactly what the arrangement is. I want clarity. And I want to pay you rent. I don't need your money." Stay. It's not about need. It's about respect. You're the property owner. But it's honest. And after everything, I think we need honesty more than we need comfortable fictions. We drew up the agreement. Fair market rent, standard lease terms, everything legal and documented. My parents started paying me monthly rent. I put it in a savings account, not spending it, just holding it in case they ever needed it back. The formalization of our arrangement was strange at first. But my father was right, it created clarity. They were living in my house, paying me rent, and that reality meant they couldn't pretend they were still in a position to dictate my life choices. 2 years after I showed my father that deed, things have settled into a new normal. My parents and Marcus have developed a genuine relationship. They ask about his work, his family, his perspective on things. He's taught my father about systemic racism, about the Black experience in America, about why my father's initial rejection was so damaging. My father has learned. Slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. He's acknowledged his prejudice. He's challenged his assumptions. He's tried to be better. My mother has been more open. She tells me now that she was relieved when I pushed back. That she'd been uncomfortable with my father's hardline stance but didn't know how to oppose him. That seeing me stand up for myself gave her courage to question things she'd accepted uncritically. Jason eventually moved out, got his own place, started actually building his life instead of coasting on being the golden child. We have a cordial relationship now. Not close, but functional. Last month, Marcus and I found out we're expecting a baby. When we told my parents, my mother cried tears of joy. My father hugged Marcus and said, "Congratulations. I'm honored to be this child's grandfather." "Even though they'll be mixed race?" I asked, testing, especially because of that. "They'll have the richness of 2 cultures, 2 heritages. That's a gift. It's not perfect. We still have moments of tension, old patterns trying to reassert themselves. But we navigate them now with tools we didn't have before: honest communication, clear boundaries, mutual respect." "In the house?" "It stays in my name. My parents continue living there, paying rent, treating it as their home. But the deed on file with the county is a permanent reminder that I'm not powerless, that I can't be erased, that my choices matter." Sometimes my father looks at me with an expression I couldn't have imagined 2 years ago. It's not pity or disappointment. It's respect. Maybe even a little pride. "You're stronger than I gave you credit for," he said recently during a Sunday dinner. "I always was. You just weren't paying attention." "I know. I'm sorry for that. I know you are. Your family's approval is not worth sacrificing your happiness. Your parents' traditions are not more important than your autonomy. And when someone tells you that you own nothing, sometimes the most powerful response is showing them the paperwork that proves otherwise. If you made it this far, you understand what it's like to be underestimated by the people who should know you best. Hit that subscribe button for more stories about people who proved their families wrong. Drop a comment about a time you had to set boundaries with parents who wouldn't respect your choices. Your courage matters. Hit like if you believe family love should be unconditional, not transactional. And share this with someone who needs to hear that you don't need anyone's permission to live authentically. Remember, the people who tell you that you own nothing are often the ones who've forgotten what you actually control. And sometimes the property deed you signed years ago becomes the leverage you need to demand respect. Until next time, this is Lily, reminding you that my father's whispered "What have I done?" wasn't about the house. It was about the relationship he'd almost destroyed over pride and prejudice. The house just made him see it clearly. And sometimes clarity is the only path to change.